Hola a todos, welcome back to MetaFit MetaMind podcast, a podcast in which speakers, leaders, entrepreneurs, and influencers come in and share their journey on how they've gotten to this place in their life while also normalizing those conversations between mental and physical health and wellness. I am Carla Rodriguez, your coach and trainer of NLP and host of this podcast, and I created this space to remind you to raise your voice and share your story. And as your guide, I am here to create a pathway to let go of all those limiting chains behind and use this platform to empower and create awareness, purpose, and expansion in your life. You can follow us on Instagram at MetaFit MetaMind Podcast, or you can follow me at Coach Carlita. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Hey, so before we jump into today's powerful conversation with this amazing guest that I have a few updates to share with you. And trust me, in my opinion, they're good ones. First, I have to celebrate something special with the Women Without Limits movement, the organization. We're planning 2 more events this year. After this last event that we did, it went so great that people were asking for another, and so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna be sharing more details over the next few weeks, so stay tuned, because if you're in Austin, you're definitely gonna want to be part of what is coming. Now, the other part of this with Women Who Work, which is also Ashton's organization, we've got 2 events on the calendar as well. One of them is the Work Circle Workshop. This will be the second round that Ashton, Roxy, and I are hosting together. The first one was last year, and it was so powerful, such a cool experience, the breakthroughs that happened, the paths, even feedback for us as facilitators and change makers, right? And so we're bringing back the energy for another round. So again, if you're in Austin, it's happening at the end of April, actually. Also, if you're on my email list, you probably saw that the NLP certification training for the spring, the registration is open, the enrollment. So every round gets better and deeper, and I'm honored to lead another group through this transformational journey. So if you haven't asked me the questions that you need to ask me, or if you haven't enrolled yet, this is your opportunity, because right now there's an early enrollment bonuses. So sign up for the newsletter or send me a message. And last but not least, I have this free masterclass coming up called Rewrite Your Inner Script, the Language of Confidence and Clarity. This is going to be a 90-minute experience all about shifting the way you speak to yourself, how that impacts your confidence, how you show up. If you've been feeling stuck, second-guessing yourself, or playing small, this is an opportunity for you. And yes, there will be a replay if you can't make it live, but I'd love to have you there in real time. Okay, so if you have questions about that, send me a message. It's happening this Saturday, April 5th. So remember to share the podcast with people who you think would like it, rate it, subscribe to it so you don't miss any of the episodes as we continue to update and as I continue this consistency. Remember, I'm on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Castbox, or other platforms that you probably listen to. So let's now get on to the actual what you're here for, today's episode. My guest today is someone whose work and story completely align with what we stand for here on the podcast: connection, intention, and authenticity, the authentic communication, yeah? And so he is a dynamic community engagement consultant and cultural bridge builder with a unique gift for fostering meaningful connections across diverse communities. He's the founder of MLC Consulting and currently serves as the board chair of the Latino Professionals Association of Greater Madison. And so Mathias Lemos Castillo is my amazing guest, and his work spans local and national for those initiatives, offering rich insights into cross-cultural communication, leadership, creative spaces, all those things. And as a bilingual professional born and raised in Uruguay, who later moved to the US, he's going to bring a powerful international perspective, right? That speaks to just so much of the community building aspect. So Mathias, I had so much fun having this conversation with him and all the things that came in between. So let's dive into today's conversation. thank you so much for being here at MetaFit MetaMind podcast. I am so excited to have this amazing guest that I met a few weeks ago. I think we clicked. For one, we're both Hispanic, which, it's not it's all the only thing important. But, it's sometimes when you meet someone from kind of your community, it's like, hey, let's talk about the pan y cafecito, and things like that. But I'm excited to have Mathias Lemos Castillo here. Thank you so much, Mathias, for being on.
Thank you, Carla, for having me on, and for the listeners for taking the time. I don't have a cafecito right now, unfortunately. I'm drinking
I know,
water.
right? Yeah,
But I wish we were
I'm
doing
trying to
this
do
over
better.
cafecito.
I know, that'll be great. But maybe when we do the Spanish version, we'll definitely have a cafecito with us and maybe a chosen treat or something.
Dale. Me dejaste los
Yeah.
antojitos. That's why you said it. And I was
¿Verdad?
like, sí.
I know. I had coffee earlier and I was like, I just need that because the weather is kind of weird right now, but it's one of those, it's kind of grayish. You just want to stay in and have that pan dulce with the coffee. And I did have coffee, but I was missing my pan. So, yeah.
The fun is the most important part.
Of course, that's what makes all the difference. So before we even get into that, let's not go into that tangent of all the sweets we love. First, I want to know, who is Matthias?
Oh, thank you, Carla. A loaded question off the bat. Not just kidding.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's
Like you
favorite,
said. Right, my name is Mathias Lemos Castillo. I'm originally from Uruguay, so United States is not home, but it's also home. So I moved here to the United States when I was, 7 going into 8, back in 2003, as Uruguay was having an economic crisis, and landed here in cold, cold, cold Madison, Wisconsin.
Wow.
I can't show you, but right now it's raining. So thankfully we're on the other side of winter, but it's still dark. So
Yeah.
very different from Uruguay. And yeah, very passionate about mi comunidad, meeting people, be able to meet, who is around me, create spaces for folks to be able to explore, not just their own story, but the stories of others, and um, really lean into being a facilitator. So I think for me, it's always been that holder of space and holder of people's stories. And I've been doing this. I started my own business back in 2022, focusing on 3 things. It's my initials, called MLC Consulting, but really what it stands for is mobilizing, listening, and connecting. Because I think at the
I love
essence,
that.
thank you.
That's so cool.
And
Mobilizing, listening, and
connecting.
connecting.
Yeah. I've been doing that for 3 years now.
Yeah.
And before that, I was doing work with MIT nationally, again, leading into
Wow.
the mobilizing piece. And
Yeah.
I'm going backwards instead of like from
No, that's okay.
order,
Because
but
basically, like on you getting MLC started and, being a facilitator of change and helping people, you're here doing that now, which is cool that you were kind of going backwards because we're going backwards anyway. We're going to go back there. So, what was that chapter or that point in your life that you said, you know what, I got to do something different? And what's that been like that has led you up to this point where you're at now?
oh, love that question, Carla. For me, I think back around 2021,
Mm-hmm.
midst of COVID, I was doing this project like I mentioned to you with Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT National, where we were having these conversations with people and really asking them like, what's working, what's not working, and how could we reimagine a world here as we're moving,
Mm-hmm.
post-pandemic, or felt like post-pandemic. It's still
Yeah.
2021. We still had masks on, depending on where you were. Here in Madison, we did, and bring you back to where, they're telling you to take your COVID vaccines, get
Yeah.
vaccinated, all those messages. And I was thinking, um, how do we create this work more authentically on the ground? The
Mm-hmm.
work was being done virtually at the time because we weren't be able to connect, and it was like esta señal que pasó, Carla, where The nonprofit shut down late 2021 and was like, okay, I don't have a job. I found myself unemployed for about 3 months, and it was January of 2022, right at the start of the year, that I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm gonna start my own business as an entrepreneur. I already had this entrepreneur mindset from before. In college. I was doing random gigs here and there, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna lean in. I'm tired of working nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
since I was working nonprofit.
Oh yeah, I know what that's like.
Right? Nothing wrong. The realm is beautiful. You can do
It
lots of
is.
impact work. I was tired
Mm-hmm.
of working corporate world. I did that before, the nonprofit realm in my time in college. And you know what? I was in the old Kanye West mood in the sense that I can't be managed. I'm my own
Yeah.
manager, sort of sense. So I said,
Yeah.
I'll start my own business. MLC Consulting was really where that came, and really
Mm-hmm.
focusing around like how do we get people intentionally engaged in decision making processes, and how do we move beyond the regular tell me what you think on a survey,
Yeah.
and rather be more intentional with the outreach and really amplify those voices that are oftentimes underheard, and not invited to the table. So really centering that, and started working very quickly with the city. So one of my first contracts was with the city of Madison.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, I've also had a few private partners, so other businesses that were doing similar work that would bring me in as a facilitator. And really what differentiated me was that I could do it in Spanish. So be able to
Got it.
hold that
Yeah.
space for the Latina community was really
Yeah.
central.
Yeah.
Uh,
And so how long was it from when you started to when you started working with the city?
I want to say it was about 2 months. So
Wow.
pretty
You kicked
quickly.
it off. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had connection. I think at the time I was also part of this nonprofit, more on the board side called the Latino Professional Association, um, which was really helpful for me because as my upbringing, as everything was going on, I was able to meet a lot of people. And when I became president of the organization, something that I preached a lot was, it's not just what you know, but who you
Mm-hmm.
know.
It's who you know. Yeah. And so let me ask you this before you continue the story, because I think this is going to be something really important for people to maybe get, especially in the entrepreneurship space or leadership. When you know the right people, what do you find is really important with those people that you know and getting things done? Like, what has been like a key factor for you there?
Yeah. Carla, I like to think around something I learned earlier on is just to keep relationship warm.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that you might meet someone at any point in your life, and
Yeah.
you don't know if you might end up working together or you might engage in that space. Really what it means to keep a relationship warm means that down the road, as you're constantly touching base with someone, or following them on social media. That's the beauty about social
Mm-hmm.
media, right? You can keep up with people's lives, or even just inviting them to a cafecito,
Right.
once a quarter.
Yeah.
Opportunities or things that they might be looking to do, or a problem that they're trying to solve will come up in conversations. And what I found in my work is that just by asking questions, being curious, what are you
Mm-hmm.
working on? Is there anything I can support you with? Or
Oh, I love that.
what are things that are in your realm right now? Those
Mm-hmm.
simple questions, asking people to really share what their struggles in right now, or a problem they're trying to wrap their head around. As an entrepreneur, that comes a long way, and I like to think of myself as a problem solver. So oftentimes when people would come in, I was like, "Oh, I would do it this way. I would do it this way," and then they're like, "Oh, why not work together?" So, uh, for me, it was easy to not easy. There was a learning curve, right? I still
Yeah.
think around those first 6 months as an
Entrepreneurship is
entrepreneur.
interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't say easy. It was more of a headache that just consistently stays, but you learn to
Yeah.
manage, it's somewhat
Yeah.
combined grade. And
Yeah.
You just gotta learn to have fun. At the same time, though,
Mm,
keep those relationships warm. It could be that old principal from your middle school, right? That suddenly started their own nonprofit and now they want to do work with you, or a mentor that you met through a networking event, and years later they're working on something and they're like, oh, I know the person, or even just a stranger, someone you met at the gym. Let's say, for example, that could be like, hey, I'm working on this. You're just chopping it up with them. It's
mhm.
really be able to keep an authentic relationship with people and not always
Yeah.
ask for what can I get from you, but rather how
Yeah.
can we
I
benefit
feel
each
like
other.
I feel like I've had that interaction, like both types of interactions where, when I came into entrepreneurship, I was like, cool, like I get to meet people, I'm gonna grow, right? It hasn't been easy, but but what I met first when I started networking and things like that is that a lot of people were very, and it also depends on the kind of event or space you go to, but a lot of people were very transactional, very like, I have this, you can give me that, right? Very like that. And then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Or who do you know? Which is great, right? It's who you know. But sometimes it was just that. And I would get these follow ups like, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Hey, I'm just following up with you again. And I just felt very off putting, right? And so I didn't want to seem rude either. So I would respond to them, oh, I'm not ready yet, which is also bad as like for someone who's selling you and you get the maybe later, like that's also not nice either as a possible consumer. But then I also saw the other side of actual, like you said, those warm relationships, the connections that we can go to coffee, we can go to like have breakfast because that's one of my way to like have a conversation with me is let's go have breakfast. I love breakfast, right? And so those
Same here.
relationships are so key. And it's like, I think people nowadays, and maybe this isn't everyone, but I feel like a lot of people in the spaces and any kind of space has almost become a little jaded that they're like, oh, what do you want from me? And it's like, how about we think about how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? And I think that creates even more powerful relationships because if maybe something could have started as transactional, maybe it ends up being different and maybe that person can end up your client or maybe you end up being their client because they have something really amazing to offer too.
Yeah, and I like to lean into the C and MLC,
Yeah.
the connecting piece. It's
A ver.
mira,
Yeah.
if I don't know the answer, I might know someone that does,
Mhm.
right? So it
Mhm.
doesn't always need to go back to the transactional piece between A and B.
Mhm.
It could be like, actually, this person, so and so does this work, or they know they're very talented at this, or just
Yeah.
accomplished something, and being able to connect people is really
Yeah.
the fun part, because then you pay it forward in a sense, because that person can then connect you to someone that they know in their
Mhm.
network, or so and so hears about you through that, and
Mhm.
it's how you build that network that is just beyond that transactional piece that you're
Yeah,
talking
and
about, Carla.
I didn't know that you had MLC when I met you because I was like, don't tell me everything yet. And I told you I was like, I feel like you're the super connector and that makes sense.
Yeah, I do remember you saying that. Now I was like, oh, I guess I didn't tell you about my business. Yes,
Yeah.
and the connecting piece is that it's really that, because it's not just in the individual, me and
Mhm.
the client, for example, but it's also within when I facilitate the groups,
Mhm.
being intentional around sharing who's in the group, why
Mhm.
they're there, what they bring, and what expertise
Yeah.
follow them. So
Yeah.
that's really important, because then you can see, oh, so and so is working on this project. Have you met this person? And you
Right.
continue building that network.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you said that you started doing all of these in Spanish, for the Spanish speakers. What do you think has been the biggest impact for them as you started to facilitate these? And also follow-up question to that is, are you still doing them all in Spanish or do you also do these in English?
yeah, I'll answer the second one first and then the first one. Definitely, I like to lean into what language people prefer.
Mm-hmm.
So, si es español, hablamos en
Sí.
español. If
Mm-hmm.
it's English, we'll do it in English. If it's Spanglish, lo podemos hacer en los dos.
Vamos, let's do it.
Uh, so it's being able to really lead into what makes the individual feel the most comfortable and that they can express their most authentic self. Um, and oftentimes, when you're working with city government or private sector, they only have like
Mm-hmm.
that one or two Spanish speaker in there. So it's like, how do we also move the work away from them so they're not overburdened by, oh, you're the only Spanish speaker, translate all these documents for me, right? It's we can again branch out and uh, have those services provided. Um, what I've learned through the work, to answer that first question, Carla, is that folks haven't been given the opportunity to really share their stories. And that's the beautiful part about, and the part that excites me the most is that as the convener, as the mobilizer, I'm
Mm-hmm.
bringing people, is creating that space for folks to feel brave to share their experiences, their stories, and be able to amplify that piece. So a lot of the conversations that I host with city staff, with individuals, community members, or even within companies, I like to lean into the experience that individuals have and what brought them to there rather than an opinion. So I'll give this
Interesting.
example, like
Yeah.
immigration, right? It's a hot
Yeah.
topic right now.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Right? Like if we're having these conversations around immigration for a community partner, let's say, I like to lean into like what's an experience you have had around immigration that has positively impacted you.
Mm-hmm.
You switch the conversation to experience because it's a different story. You can't argue someone's experience.
Yeah.
Where in an opinion, it's different, right? Uh, you are able to argue an opinion because that's something that you made up. It's in your mind or something that you
Yeah.
read and you got influenced by it. You see like immigrants are taking our jobs, for example, right? A big one.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, when those sort of statements come up in conversation, which they have, I facilitate a number of conversations and with folks that
Mm.
look very different from me. And the beautiful part is that then I can come back and say, can you share an experience so that when immigration has affected you negatively?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes you find that the folks don't because they haven't been able to form an opinion about it. They've heard, they've been influenced in some sort of way.
It's like information that they've taken from others, maybe, but they haven't maybe personally experienced it. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they've
Yeah.
internalized that. And now they're like, oh, but immigrants have done this. And then on the flip side, you can ask someone, be like, have you had an experience? And let's say someone that has migrated, like me or my parents.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, that has helped me grow into the individual I am. I'm supporting la comunidad that I'm part of, or, being more of the sense of as an individual here, I've been
Mm-hmm.
able to grow and it's harder with immigration. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's such an interesting topic, but it's really leaning into the what is your
Yeah.
experience with the topic? Could be like
Yeah.
healthcare, could be food insecurity, could be,
Mm-hmm.
zoning if we're gonna talk to government and what's the experience the individual had over the opinions that have been
For
formed.
sure. And I think this is important. I think this is so important as a facilitator and as communicators. We work in communication essentially. It's like understanding, not to understand, like, I understand your experience, more like understanding in the sense of, I can see your point, I can hear you, I feel that, I can see how that feels that way. And what's cool is that as a facilitator, you get to ask them questions, ask them, share with me when it's happened or when you've seen this. And then they get to like really, oh, let me like really think about that. Or, ¿cuándo es que me pasó esto? Like, when did this actually happen to me? Did I hear it from fulana aquí, right? Or this person there, or this neighbor here? And I think a lot of this, and I'll say this because I don't like, other than social media and me, having to work with it, I'm not a fan of the regular media, right? Because a lot of people, if we talk about immigration or immigrants, they don't know what they don't know. And so what they see on the news is what they know and what they get fed. And so I think as facilitators, our job, and you told me otherwise, right? We get to open them up to perspective. maybe other opinions, but not necessarily to you're supposed to do this, but more in the sense of like, hey, have you thought about it in this way? Or here's another resource. And maybe you, as MLC, and facilitator, maybe you're providing them resources to like, hey, these are a few options. And I think opinion also is more from this place of being biased, right? I'm a
Mm-hmm.
woman, so maybe I'm biased because I'm a woman. You're a guy, maybe you're biased because you're a guy, right? So we have those experiences too that, yes, we have to acknowledge. I respect that you're a man and I understand. I can hear that opinion. Okay, here's mine. Let's learn from each other. And I think that's essential in entrepreneurship as a facilitator, communicator, connector, even.
Yeah, no, and Carla, and even as we create the new world that we want to live and be part
Mm-hmm.
of, right? We all play a
Yeah.
role, and it is up to each other to really be able to share those. I love how you said provide perspectives, an open perspective, so folks can see beyond, it's the cell phone or the Facebook or whatever we're
Mm-hmm.
consuming daily. Let's also take people's stories equally as powerful as, that one post you saw on social media, or if anything, even more,
Yeah.
because it's a real human. Uh,
Yeah.
and centering
Mm-hmm.
those stories. So what the work is really amplifying that. How do we amplify underheard voices? And for a lot of the communities here in the United States, from my own experience and having
Mm-hmm.
facilitated conversations in multiple states, it's that the Latine voice
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes is not heard, and
Yeah.
we need to be heard. We need to be
Yeah.
able to share our stories, and we need to create our spaces that welcome not just our story as Latina, but other BIPOC folks and other
Yeah.
communities, and be able to amplify that, because collectively we have a lot of knowledge, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of experiences, and who knows, maybe the solutions that we're looking for is
Yeah.
right there together in
Yeah.
community. So,
For sure. And let me tell you this, that maybe not everybody's gonna like hearing. And I've had a while to like think about this, and I used to be afraid to share my voice, and that's part of where I'm going, is that our voice isn't heard because we don't speak up, right? Because community wise, like Latinos, Latinas, Hispanics, whatever the terms you want to use, right? It's like we culturally have learned, we've been programmed, we've been socialized, right? We've been trained essentially not to, unless we're in our own countries and we're comfortable there, but in a new place and in a new environment, we don't know how to do that. And sometimes we don't know where to find the resources and the things that we need. So therefore, that's not available to me. Oh, they don't have that. And maybe it is. And I think that's part of why we are not heard, is because we're not speaking up either. No matter what language we're in, right? Whether in English and Spanish and French, Italian, whatever, wherever people are from, right? But as Latinos, we're not speaking up. And that's why I have this podcast too, right? Part of what I say is raise your voice, share your story. Matthias' story is so important, and you can inspire somebody. And that's what we're doing here, right? Is to learn from each other. Doesn't matter from what culture, but we can learn from each other and just be curious along the way. And so I like that you said that, because I have this, it took me a while to say, we're just not speaking up. That was something that I was so afraid to say for a long time.
and Carla's story is important too, and I'd love to hear
Thank you.
more. It's needed now more than ever. We have the
Mm-hmm.
power to hear the story of so many other
Mm-hmm.
people. I want to flip the script and say, why not yours? Why not
Yeah.
raise your voice? Why not say, soy fulano y esta es
Yeah.
mi historia? Como
Uh-huh.
quieras,
Exacto.
invitarlos, and also equally the importance to create spaces for people to
Mm-hmm.
authentically listen and connect, right? It's
Yeah.
not just,
Yeah.
I love this format here that we're having, Carla, and being able to facilitate these conversations for folks to be able to say, like, okay, you have the spotlight. Tell me,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want to share to the world? And uh, people don't get that sometimes. They just get again, like I said, the reason I started my business, like I noticed that there was a lot of, here, have a survey. Tell me on this, Scantron, fill in the
Yeah.
dots, right? Whatever you're doing
Quietly.
quietly, Survey
Secretly.
Monkey, which nothing wrong with the tools, right?
Yeah,
Tools are
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
be tools.
yeah,
Yet, how can we create more inclusive tools that more
yeah,
authentically share people's stories and
yeah.
voices?
And you knowing all that, right? You doing all that research, doing something about it, taking some action, and making things happen, which I think is amazing. So let me ask you this, because we're talking about speaking up, not speaking up, how we're facilitating, how we're communicating. And along this process, right, this journey has been your journey to start this to make change. And I'm sure that came from some place when you were young too, that you wanted to help people. And here you are, right? Maybe it was innately within you. But along this process, as you've gotten to this, be this successful entrepreneur, and as you continue to grow, that correlation between mental and physical health, right? How has that played out in your life, and how do you see it also as you continue to facilitate?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question, Carla. Thank you for asking it
Yeah.
because the mental and the physical are really are key, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can only show up to spaces and give as much energy as you really have. Like, right, if you're not recharging your own battery and you're constantly at, let's say, 35%, to sound like robotic for a little while, right? You're only going to be able to give 35%. So, something that I always practice before any conversation and even after is that self-care and, my mantras, what do I need to do to make sure
Yeah.
that I can hold the space as a facilitator for these individuals? Because it is heavy. It's almost sort of feels like you're being a therapist sometimes. And I don't know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yes.
you might feel it as a podcaster, someone might be just dropping this really heavy story. So
Yeah.
energy is, it's sticky. Como se dice, it can stick onto you really in a
Como
positive or
chicle,
negative way. Como un chicle. Yeah.
yeah.
You
Or
know,
like what's that Velcro too? Like it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah.
Velcro is a good example, and you also need as a facilitator to have the tools to be able to make sure that you're not letting it stick to you. You can be
Mm-hmm.
transparent,
Yeah.
or also when you're holding these spaces, be able to release it in a gentle way.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's yoga. I started doing hot yoga,
Oh, cool.
3 years ago too. When I
Mm-hmm.
started my business, I needed it even more. I also run, so I think for me, more
That's a
physical.
good balance.
Right. Yeah. Until you trip and then you're like, oh, I can't run anymore. But I'm doing
I don't like
better.
running, so that's
It's
okay.
fun. It's a fun sport. I think, como te digo, desde chiquito, mi mamá me decía que yo empecé corriendo, no
Mm-hmm.
caminando. So it's always funny.
Really?
I've always
Uh-huh.
been like a runner.
Ahí andaba corriendo trip.
Oh,
Corriendo again, trip. As a
there.
little one.
Yo también. Yo también. I got
Uh-huh.
scars right here in my in
Yeah.
my
I
forehead
fell
from
from
it.
a crib. Apparently, I was like jumping a lot on a crib and like boom, fell over. Oops.
Oh no.
Sorry, mom.
It's the stories, experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's being able to have those rituals, let's say for lack of better words, to help you be able to move on from that moment or
Mm-hmm.
release that energy that you gain from holding someone's stories and be able to release it in a healthy manner, right? Some people might be, I also think about like therapists and what they do post every session when they're holding, space for someone and they might be going through a really tough time. Uh, Therapists probably use some sort of, release tension,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do
I
it.
hope
If
so.
it's hopefully, right?
Yeah.
If it's through movement, if it's through reading, if it's through music, I recommend people find that thing that helps you authentically and softly release that energy you gain
Mm-hmm.
from holding that space and
Yeah.
make sure that your mind can get back to, 100% or to the start where you need. I found for me, it's always been more or less physical. I need to
Yeah.
move. I need to release, you know, I might go for a 3 mile run, put on some Bad Bunny and be like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
just listening to this for the next
Yeah.
45 minutes. And it helps me at least be
Yeah.
able to restart and
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, who's next?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah. No, I
important to
totally
have
get
that.
that. I totally get that as coaches, facilitators, because I coach. Um, you get the heavy stuff. And then sometimes we can forget about us because we just want to be there helping everybody, or I need to help this person out, but this person called me, and this person. And I remember I used to work for a holistic health space, and
Mm.
I love it. I loved it. I loved it so much. It was really cool to see all the changes. And I worked with more than 70 people in about a year and a half, like helping them create change and breakthroughs. And at some point, I was getting to like a point of burnout. Not because I wanted to burn out or because I don't love what I do, but more like, oh shoot, what about Carla? Like,
Yeah.
coach, help me out here, please. Like somebody. So yeah, so I think it's so important that you have that. For me, it's lifting. So I like
Mm.
some heavy lifting, although sometimes they make me run. It's CrossFit, but if it's in the workout, I have no choice there. So yeah, so that's cool that you've found yoga, and I think is that a way like to help you center too?
Yeah, the yoga helped me more with the mindfulness and get
Mm-hmm.
centered, the movement.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to know about the lifting. How much are you lifting, Carla? You're out here
Depends.
just casually.
I gotta think it's a 325, 335 deadlift.
Mira, mira, wow.
I
Don't
la
mess with
llevo.
Carla, is what I'm hearing.
That's probably my favorite movement though. Like back squat is probably like maybe 180s, 190s. No,
Okay.
200s. It's taking the 200s. I already forgot. But front squat is in like 195, 195 or something.
You can
So
pick up a
it's
whole
fun.
human and
There's a
squat
lot of
them, is what I'm
cardio
hearing.
in lifting, yo. There's
Yes.
lifting is cardio. Most people will probably, maybe many people won't agree, but maybe many will. Lifting is cardio. You should hear your heartbeat and feel your heartbeat after some heavy lift. You're like, what is happening to me right now? So,
Hopefully you're following
yeah.
that with water and rest.
Yes, water and soreness the next few days, but it is what it is. And I think it's cool though, like having those outlets, because in that moment, it's just you and your body, you and that. I'm gonna pass that tree, in this 3 mile run. Okay, I passed that tree. 2 lights from now, I'm gonna keep going that's the only way I can run. Because if I think of like what's happening right now, which actually is kind of key moment here that it's about to come out, is that I'm like, I'm focusing right here. Like, I'm not getting anywhere. And sometimes when we're in our shit, like, we don't see anything else because we're right here, right? Whereas we can see a little further, just a little bit, and we're like, okay, I can get there. And I think that's really important as an entrepreneur. And so, as you're getting there, Matthias, I like how I'm connecting these today. I'm like on a roll. What are you
You're doing
excited
great.
about? What are you getting to as far as MLC, as an entrepreneur? Like, what are you excited about?
Yeah, I've been really reflecting on that one, Carla. It's been more of the how big I can get with the organization. Solopreneurship is fun. I think at some point I do want to be able to create space for more people to
Yeah.
join me in this journey and be able to explore, being your own boss. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
naturally, as you start growing a business, you're like, okay, how do I go
Mm-hmm.
from one to two and two to
Mm-hmm.
four? So I see that aspect, but I also see the impact work,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do we do this one really meaningful engagement or this one moment where we're really rethinking the way input is done or
Mm-hmm.
community is built? And how can we multiply it into two? And how can that get multiplied into four, eight?
Yeah.
So you're building that network. Um, I'm still in year three of my business, just starting. So I'm really excited because I'm starting to finally see like entrepreneurship is like farming in a way, right? You're really planting seeds daily. You're watering, hoping for, the sprouts to come out at some point and the sprouts to turn into a plant that later turns into some sort of bush or tree. And from there you start seeing the fruits, right? Like you can't skip from the seed to the fruit because there's so many
Yes.
steps in between. Right. I know. I wish.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, where's the I got my little money tree right here
Yeah. Heck
joining me
yeah.
today. But
Yeah.
it's the how to be consistent too and making sure that as you're watering, as you're keeping the relationship warm, as you're connecting with people, it's all growing with intention, and keeping in mind that you might not see the fruits right away. That doesn't mean down the road you won't see any fruits, right? You might see a mango tree come up, and that mango might be the most beautiful thing you've seen, and now you got fruit. I love
Yeah.
mangoes personally. I don't know.
I love mangoes.
They don't grow here in
Oh my
Wisconsin,
gosh.
unfortunately.
Really?
No, it's too
Yeah.
cold.
Uh, Yeah, damn, you gotta buy them really expensive, huh?
Oh yeah, that and avocados.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we take advantage of mangoes when it's summer here in Texas, but it gets really hot here, so gotta eat them immediately.
Oh, I
And
bet.
avocados, of course, too. And so I was gonna say, I think that's so cool that you're saying that because sometimes, and it's what you see on social media, right? It's like, oh, they're so successful and this and that. You see people like the school people and like I follow a few people as well, and they're like, oh, they're successful, right? And I went to a women's conference a couple years ago, and these women were six-figure earners, no, seven-figure earners, like $1 million, and I was like, wow, like these women are doing it, and I want to say 2 years in, and some of them said, I didn't start seeing success until my third, fourth year. Or
Oh,
success, what they, right? And I didn't start seeing these consistent 6-figure years, now 7 figures, right? I didn't start seeing this until I almost quit. I'm in my third year, I'm in my fourth year, I'm going on my fifth year, and I'm finally seeing those seeds and I'm like, yes, like what I've been working on and the relationships, like it's happening. And for some people it happens immediately, right? Which is great. I love
mhm.
that. And I think for most of us folks, it's like plant the seeds, right? Build the relationships, which is actually really amazing too, to have that steady growth because people get to know you a little differently than like, oh shoot, I have a good problem, which is growth, but I don't have time to really build these relationships.
And Carla, what I would add to it, sure, I love it. I like +1 to everything. I was like, yes, 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 yes. Internally too, we oftentimes forget that we're the ones also growing too with the process, right? Like, look at
Hmm.
you now. Take a moment and just pause and think about you 6 months ago. And are you still the same person? Hopefully not.
Hmm.
And if not, if you still are, well, pause here and think about you now and in 6 months in the future, think, are you still the same person, right? Because we're not. We're similarly to the plants that we're growing, we're also growing and changing and be able to also recognize that, right? Because with time, especially as an entrepreneur, you gain more experience, you gain more knowledge in the sense of like, oh, I tried this didn't work. You learn, right? That's like, okay, I learned, or I tried this was successful. Let me replicate it. And it's just being able to understand that you won't get it right the first time, but at least you did something. So you can try again and again and again every day, and eventually something will hit. But do it with
Hmm.
intentionality. That's the other
Yeah.
piece. Don't just throw. I love the one saying, very corporate, like we're throwing spaghetti on the wall.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right? It's very messy that way. So that's why I say try to be more intentional and paint a picture or paint something that
Hmm.
grows with you and feels good within yourself, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Learn a
Grow
new
your mango
course,
fruit.
grow your mango fruit, and grow your own money tree.
Yes.
Uh, and don't look at what someone else is doing. Try to be authentic in yourself and bring out the best that you can. For me, one of the reasons why MLC Consulting really emerged was because as an immigrant coming to this country, I've I've gained so much from my community. I learned how to speak English,
Heck yeah.
right? And I wanted an opportunity to give back because I've learned from so many great people that it was that I wanted to be like, how can I provide that space for the same individuals or new individuals to be able to also grow? Because and we're both growing, we're both thriving, and we're all doing better, and
Yeah.
that's a win-win in my book.
Heck yeah, that's a win-win for sure. And if people wanted to work with you, connect with you, I don't know, ask you questions, how can they find you?
Yeah, right now I've been really active on LinkedIn, trying to I feel like the social medias are all kind of like one by one falling out of, I don't know, or I don't like Facebook
Something
anymore.
going on.
Yeah, something's in the air, and I'm like, eh. But LinkedIn is really where I'm at right now.
Okay.
So folks can definitely reach out, send me a message. I have a lot of content that I've been sharing too from my time in learning that I like the other aspect of MLC is really just that leadership development. Maybe the L is more than just listening, but also leadership. And how can we bring out the best leaders inside of us to be able to guide those around us, those people that we work with? You know, are you a manager? Are you trying to be a director? Are you trying to be a CEO?
Right.
You're always going to be working with people. So I like to link into like how do we develop those soft skills so folks can not only focus on the hard skills, right? You're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a physicist, whatever you are, that's a hard skill, and those are
Yeah.
great. You also need to put time on the soft skills, and that's really what I like to lean into. Like, how do we create
Cool.
people with more soft skills to create a, you know, a softer world around us and more compassionate?
Yeah, for sure. I love it. I love it. So I'm gonna include the his LinkedIn in the show notes. I'll look at the show notes, and you've already shared so many really cool things and amazing things for people to really think about. And if somebody wanted to learn something from you, or wanted you as a mentor, what's one thing you would teach them or share with them?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, right now I've been on this trend around like lift as you rise. Um, and I really like that one because we all have had the opportunity to be that mentor or be
Mm-hmm.
that connector, uh,
I love
and be able to say, okay, as I'm rising personally, who can I put in that position that I just left, you know? I think about like hermit crabs. This is really funny. You know how like hermit crabs are always constantly looking for their next home, and sometimes it's a bigger one because they're growing and they're like, oh, and then another hermit crab would like go and take that
They'll
one.
take over that little space that they left.
Yeah. So how do we
Yeah.
lean more into that? You don't need to be the antisocial, you know, the little antisocial hermit crab, but more of the as you're leaving, letting go of this old you, this old, well, maybe it's a job, maybe it's a position that you were in as a volunteer for so long, or I don't know, even that bench at the gym, right? How could you put someone that will
Yeah.
benefit there, so they can use it and they can grow and they can go through that experience of what it's like to grow and continue
Mm-hmm.
to live. So I'll go there. You know, I've been really loving that lift as you rise mantra and thinking very intentionally like who's around me that I can help grow
Yeah.
into their best version yet.
That's so cool. I've never heard that before. Lift as you rise. And it took me a second to like really for it to click. I'm like, what? Like, what? Am I lifting something as I'm standing up? And I'm like, no, no, no. Lift as you rise. That's so cool. Like, I've heard the saying or the idea around, surround yourself with people who are very successful, but also help people who are on the journey right behind you. But lift as you rise is such a simple way to put it. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. That's super powerful.
I thought you were gonna say something around like a very bad morning mantra to go to the gym, right? Go
Oh,
lift as you wake up.
that's another good one.
That's a good
No,
one. Yeah,
I'm not
no.
always Jim either.
Just
Yeah,
had you at that point. I was like, maybe
yeah,
it's a lifting one. No.
maybe. Yeah,
Uh,
I almost thought about that too, but I feel like, but I really appreciate everything you have shared today and just sharing a little bit about you and how you've gotten to this point in your life. So thank you so much for being here, Matthias. Like, I'm super grateful. I'm excited because, I talked about it in another episode, but I'm gonna bring him back if he says yes, of course, to an all Spanish version. So if you know Spanish speakers and you're like, hey, this is a really great story, be ready because that's gonna be coming in a few months.
well, the listeners can hear me say yes here. It's on record.
See.
See.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and till next time.
Ciao.
Perfect. That was such a fun podcast episode with Matthias. And here's a couple things that I learned in this episode and this conversation with him. The first one is about authentic relationships and how they build long-term impact. And it's not just about networking, it's about nurturing. Mathias shared how powerful it is to keep relationships warm through genuine check-ins, conversations over, cafecito, and just simply how you can ask, like, how can I support you? And so when we can lead with that curiosity instead of an agenda, we create meaningful connection that opens up those long-term connections and just, relationships. It's not just about that transactional thing, like I said. And I think that's something that people are becoming more aware of. And in my eyes, that's a huge, huge win. The second thing I got from this episode is that our stories are meant to be heard. This episode was a reminder that our voices matter, especially in communities where we've been taught to stay quiet. He emphasized how important it is of creating brave spaces, safe spaces where people can speak from experience, not just opinion. And as I say, right, when we raise our voice and share our stories, we don't just empower ourselves, we inspire other people to do the same. So let me know what you learned from this, all right? Again, this spring, the cohort of the next NLP certification training is starting. So send me a message to have a conversation on how you can improve your conversations, your confidence. And if you have not done so, make sure to enroll into the free masterclass that's coming up this weekend, all right? Because it's going to be a really powerful one. So make sure to share, rate, and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so. Please share it, rate to it, subscribe to this. It's going to help me so much to pop up on these platforms. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at MetaFit MetaMind Podcast, on Facebook, go to the website, metafitmetamind.com. And thank you so much for being here and listening to this episode up to this point. I am Carla Rodriguez, and this is MetaFit MetaMind Podcast, where we're normalizing conversations that we would have never had. Until next time.